All right. Are we? Yep. All right. And I see it, that it's recording. Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. So we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Carvelli, and I am one of the team leaders here at Greenway Mortgage. Mostly I support my wife, Erin, and the other loan officers on our team with tools and processes and marketing. Today is going to be the first in a series of short discussions with mortgage industry professionals about how their businesses have been affected by the current pandemic and how they're adapting to serve their clients' needs. Joining me today is John DeSantis from Mega Title. He's going to talk to us about the title business and settlement services they provide. To put things in context, today is April 8th. We're well into the shelter-in-place orders issued across the country. We're joining you today remotely via Zoom. We're also streaming this on Facebook Live. And I'm sure that if anybody has been using any kind of streaming service over the past several weeks, you'll know that there are times that I guess technical limitations cause either video to hang up or audio to be garbled. So if that happens, we'll try to catch it and we'll pause. So we'll just pause and just let it catch up. So that I've seen that happen a lot. And the best thing to do is just take a time out and then get back to it. You'll also see that we have somebody that's going to be moderating. Her name is Kelly. So if you have questions, so if you have any kind of questions, you can post them in the Zoom chat or into the Facebook Live feed, and then towards the end, we'll ask Kelly if there's any questions that need to be addressed. So, John, welcome.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time out. I know that you're busy getting out there, trying to get as many loans closed as you can under the situation. And I'd like to just start by asking you to give some background about yourself, the industry you're in, and how it fits into the residential mortgage space. And then we'll dive into some specific questions and topics.
Thank you. Well, I am a licensed title insurance producer, celebrating 31 years licensed. Used to have my own title company, decided to work smarter, not harder, and give up the administrative end of things. Found a new home with Mega Title, just an all-around great company as far as back-end processing, just everything I need, they provide. Our owner, Samaya Gabor, is just amazing. One of the nicest people I've ever met in the title industry. So things couldn't be better right now as far as, mortgage interest rates and things like that. So I started out with a title background, searching, things like that, opened up my own agency. So, I did a little bit of everything.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you actually touched on one of the questions that I have on my list here is about searching. So can you tell us a little bit about title searches, what a title search is, how it's done?
Absolutely. So one of the things we do, we research the property as far as ownership, interest of that property, liens, judgments, among other things, surveys, things like that, but we can get into that later. So all of this is done, or most of it, at the county clerk level, which, given the light of the pandemic, a lot of county clerks' offices are either closed or they're only letting searchers in a certain amount of days and a certain amount of people at one time, obviously for social distancing reasons. However, most of them, I believe all of them, are still accepting documents for electronic filing. So that's good. So while it hasn't prevented us from doing business, it sometimes is taking a longer period of time to get the searches completed and back to us because of those restrictions put in place by the county clerk and the governor now.
Yeah. So you mentioned electronic filing, and is that in place of actually having a title searcher go down to the Hall of Records and look through the books, or is that some other aspect of it?
No, the searches are done in the county, so we still have searchers that actually go into the Hall of Records, search the records, and give us a report of those findings. The e-filing is in regards to deeds, mortgages, things of that nature that actually have to be filed with the county clerk.
Okay.
So once we're done with a closing, the deeds and mortgages, we are able to electronically file those documents now.
Okay.
And while that also has been delayed because of certain restrictions, they are still accepting the e-filings, just putting them in the order that they were received, as they used to do with just the regular, documents sent in for recording.
So the actual title searches are still being done at the Hall of Records, despite their being closed, because that they're allowing some amount of people in on a fixed schedule. Is that right? Is there any of the searches being done electronically or online at this point?
That's a good question. So as of right now, most counties are online, and that's really just because of the Open Public Records Act. So you can access documents online. However, I find unless it's an actual, hardwired into the county clerk recorded documents website, it's not always accurate. So I know Ocean County for the longest time, you could actually get into their system and do a search just as if you were in the Hall of Records, which is great because then there's really no, I'll say, margin for error aside from human error when those documents were put in. But, some counties, I don't trust 100% the online because it's not for searching. It's just for the public to access those documents because deeds, mortgages, things like that, they are public record.
Okay. So how much of a, time delay is the social distancing putting in for the title searches at this point? The records being closed or only letting so many people in. I mean, has that delayed any of the title work at this point?
Minutely, I'll
Minutely.
say on average, maybe an extra 2 to 3 days on our end
Okay.
as far as getting searches back. But our searchers are, we have searchers all over the state of New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and things have been still moving pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. So I think on our end, at least from the mortgage end, we've been obviously trying to get title orders in as soon as possible to make sure that they end up not being the long pole in the tent. And I'm assuming that's best practice. And yeah. Okay, good. So,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Better to be safe than sorry. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to get down into the details of what a title company is responsible for in the mortgage transaction. So if you could possibly, outside of the title searching, which we've obviously discussed, but I'd like to understand from, when we put the title order in to when the closing takes place, what is the title company's responsibility?
So on a refinance, we do everything from start to finish now. So we're doing the title search, we're dealing with the lender directly, we're clearing up title issues, and we are also working with the closing department, scheduling closings, getting the closing documents, dispersing funds. So we're pretty much doing everything aside from the mortgage processing, which is your end. But on a purchase, the attorneys are still doing the contract review negotiations for the home inspection issues that might come up. And then again, we're taking over after that and doing everything right to the finish line. So still handling disbursements and the closings.
So when you say handling the disbursements and whatnot, is that what's termed as officiating the closing? Or maybe you can just define what officiating a closing means.
Well, officiating a closing is more of the notarial aspect. So it's a notary public or an attorney taking witnessing the documents being signed.
Okay. And so the responsibility of a notary is to witness the, can you go into that a little bit, what a notary does and the responsibilities? And I guess it's more targeted towards refis in this discussion, right?
Well, either or. So, we have clients, the borrowers or buyers signing documents. So somebody has to make sure that the person who's signing that document is the actual person who's supposed to be signing that document.
Okay.
So a notary public, we make sure that we get valid picture ID, at least two, so we know that that person is the one who's supposed to be signing and is actually signing. And then as a notary public, we are acknowledging that we saw them sign that particular document.
And is notarizing the only thing right now that requires you to be co-located with a client at a closing?
Yeah, with the institution of DocuSign and things like that, contracts of sale can be signed digitally, addendums signed digitally, other mortgage documents can be signed digitally. However, most lenders are, even if they have, an online portal or they allow an e-closing, there's still certain documents that have to have a live or wet signature, such as the note, the mortgage, the affidavit of title, the closing disclosure. So I think for the most part, most of those documents could probably be e-signed as well, but the mortgage itself, well, I guess it could. I just see potential problems down the line as far as fraud. I mean, there's fraud as it is right now. So if you don't have that, personal or physical connection where you're actually witnessing or seeing the documents being signed by that individual, I think down the line, it could, open up more cases of fraud.
And that's for e-signing.
Correct.
Okay. So I've heard this concept of a remote notary and the possibility that there is a law in the works in New Jersey. And I was wondering, can you comment on that, or, where do you see that going? When do you see it being something that can actually be utilized?
Well, the governor did put that plan into motion as far as the remote online notary. It hasn't been passed yet, so it's not legal in New Jersey as of right now. And then once it does get passed, we're going to have to work with our underwriters to make sure that there's proper systems and procedures in place, because it's not as easy as just, hooking up a Zoom conference and looking at them signing a piece of paper. Again, it's going to be a whole new platform, which would have to be, you'd have to have access on both parties' parts. So while we may be able to get that, those platforms in place, many borrowers might not, because as well as I that there's many people who don't like computers. They don't use computers. They don't want to touch them. They don't want to do anything. They still have flip phones. Everybody's watching. So I see that as possibly being a problem down the line too, in some instances.
So it's not going to be, it sounds to me, because, and this is now I find this interesting, because I was just under the impression that they were going to pass the law and we're going to be doing remote notary closings. But it sounds like that's not the case. So what do you think the time frame is on once it's even instituted as a law? Or I guess maybe a different question is, has it been approved has it been approved in other states where these platforms do already exist?
Yes, there are certain states that do allow the remote online notary. It kind of brings me back to the institution of TRID, back in, what was it, July 2014 or 2015, when they first wanted to institute TRID, lenders knew about this, but nobody was ready for it. Even 7-8 months down the road, they had to keep extending the date further and further because nobody was prepared. You guys had to have now 2 platforms because they didn't make this, for every loan. There were still, cash deals, commercial, reverse mortgages that still have the old HUD settlement statement. So,
Right.
you're working with 2 platforms, and I know everybody in the mortgage industry just went crazy because now your one platform wasn't coinciding with the other. So after the law gets passed, which it most likely will here, you still have that lag time where we're going to need to put proper systems and processes into place to make sure that everything is done correctly. And we're protecting not only the clients, but the lenders and ourselves. Everybody's got to be protected. So it's not just as easy as, hey, let's hop on a Zoom meeting and I'm going to watch it on a document. There's more to it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not a quick fix. So it's something that's going to happen. And then it's going to take some time to roll out the infrastructure, so to speak, in order to support that. Okay. Exactly. So then that brings me to my next question, which is obviously you've been operating under, there's a lot of refis going on right now, obviously. That's probably keeping you very busy. Yeah. I know that we've been keeping you pretty busy, but I guess, so obviously there's a lot of apprehension out there about social distancing and, people touching pens and this, that, and the other thing. So I was wondering if you could sort of dive into what your process has been and how have you been able to achieve touchless, properly social distanced closings in person with other people.
So it hasn't been a big challenge for me. I've been washing my hands religiously for the past 46 years. So, in that respect, I'm always super clean. I'm always making sure my hands are washed, don't touch your face. That's just something I learned as a kid and just fortunately it stayed with me. I'm not so worried. However, I want to make my clients feel as comfortable as possible. So what I do, and this all goes back to communication, right? It's like anything else. I talk to my clients before the closing and I get a sense. I want to see what they're comfortable with. As far as what I do on my end, again, aside from being a confirmed germaphobe for the past however many years, all the pens we use are single-use pens. I come with the bag that they came wrapped up in from the factory, and I'm using gloves and or a mask. If you've seen my Facebook post, I'm doing closings anywhere the client feels comfortable. If they want to do it out in the driveway on a chair, if they want to do it in a makeshift do-it-yourself table in the garage. I've had people on quarantine. So, just taking extra precautions. Basically, I'm getting the package set up and we're not passing the papers back and forth. I'm basically passing the whole package to them, going through their signing as I'm explaining all the documents to them. So trying to, keep distance, of course, still explain the documents, have less, passing back and forth, just trying to keep everything to a minimum and just making the clients feel comfortable. So whatever they want, I'm good to do. It's been interesting. Say the least.
Yeah, for sure. So, being on the closing end of a transaction, and you're one of the last people, for sure, you're the last person in that transaction that you connect with clients on, but also, realtors and attorneys. And, I'm just wondering what sorts of things you're hearing from them about how their businesses have been impacted and, what changes to they're making to service their client base.
Attorneys that I deal with, most of them, I'm doing the closings anyway. So, my same normal procedures are in place for that. Some are, not letting people into the office. So they're setting up makeshift tables out in the hallways, things like that. Again, whatever they're comfortable with, that's fine. Realtors, I feel really bad right now what's going on. You have realtors who don't want to go into a house. You have buyers who don't want to go into a house. You have home inspectors right on down the line, CO inspectors. They don't want to go into people's houses because of
Yep.
this pandemic. So, it's been a challenge. What I'm seeing, which I think a lot of realtors were starting to get on the bandwagon before this anyway, is more of a virtual home tour, which I think is great because you can at least look at the house, get a sense, do I like this house, to maybe look into it further. Or you can say, well, you know what, I'm going to rule these 3 houses out right away. So this way, at least you don't have to go running around to 17 different houses. You can kind of pick one that looks good. But as well as I, you can't just buy a house sight unseen. You want to go in it. You want to get a feel for it. You want to just see what it really is, because anybody can make pictures look good.
Yeah.
So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for realtors is, not being able to go into a home. I've had people, sellers say, take my house off the market. That's how scared people are.
Yeah.
So it's, it was like things were so good and things were moving. And then this just brought everything to I won't say a screeching halt, but it's definitely slowed things down as far as the purchase
market. Yeah. I was thinking about, what the best protocol would be for, people that are looking to buy a house, and, forgetting the fact that some people might be taking their houses off the market, those that are on the market, I had always thought that if somebody was looking for a house, the best thing to do would be to, ask their realtor for a big fat list of homes that meet their qualifications. They would go through that list and immediately pare that down to a list that they can drive around and see. Because, a big thing about, what a home's attraction is the neighborhood it's in, right? So, then they can drive around, they could see those houses, they could whittle that list down to something that's manageable. So instead of seeing 10 houses with a realtor, they would have done like a lot of upfront legwork. And then ultimately at the end of the day, they can ask their realtor to see, I don't know, three or 5 houses. And obviously that minimizes, the amount of contact that the realtor's having with the client, and also, going into other people's properties. So that was sort of the thing that I thought would be a best practice for clients looking for at a new home.
Sure.
So I want to just wrap it up real quick, because I don't want these things to go too long. The only other question that I had is, what for you is what changes that have been made so far as a result of this, do you think will remain permanent in your business or in the real estate or mortgage business in general?
That is a great question, and it's one that's to yet be determined. As far as what I'm doing on a daily basis, aside from being a little extra careful, nothing's changed. It's business as usual. So, we are still, pushing things through. We're still getting things done, still closings on time. And, going forward, I think that the remote online notary, once it does come, I think it'll be a good addition to the closing. Just like with Greenway, with their e-closings, it has cut down the closing times tremendously, the need for extra paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
We give flash drives for our documents to the buyers or borrowers, which they love, so they don't have to have a big stack of papers
Mm-hmm.
lying around. So I don't think there's going to be that many changes. And things as far as, realtors, things like that, they should be coming to you getting a pre-approval, not a pre-qual, a pre-approval. So this way, they're not wasting their time running around looking at houses people can't afford. As you mentioned, getting that checklist of what do you want in a house, get that ready. So this way you're cutting down probably 70% of the houses. And then virtual tours, I think, will help as well to cut down some of the traffic going in and out of houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once this all passes, I think, things will get back to some sort of normal if we're going to have any sort of normalcy anymore anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I do think that, once the brakes come off on the economy, and people do get comfortable with interacting with others again, that the housing market will recover relatively quickly. I don't think we're looking at it staring down a 2008 situation here. The underlying economy and housing market was healthy, before this shock came along. Whereas back in 2008, when we went into the Great Recession, the housing market was in trouble, and a lot of people ended up with overvalued properties. They were over leveraged and things like that. I know that e-closings have definitely been a big tool in our tool chest recently. They obviously cut down on like you said, the number of documents, which then of course cuts down on how long people have to be face to face with one another. And I think we're going to see our investors had been apprehensive about doing e-closings for across the board, but I think we're going to see that open up to purchases as well, more and more. So I think that those things are, if there's any silver lining to this, I think we're going to have a lot of innovation in technology, as a result. So. With that, is there anything else that you wanted to add or throw out there to anybody?
Not at this time. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I think the economy is going to bounce back after all this. The housing market before all this was phenomenal. I don't remember a busier January, February, and March, which was my best month ever in the history, 31 years, by hands down.
Yeah.
So I think once this all passes, I think that we are going to be back on track. Things are going to start moving again, and things, like I said, we'll get back to normal. And just keep doing what you're doing. They're really doing a wonderful job with the e-closings and whatnot. I think it's a beautiful thing. So excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, and one last thing that I would like to add is just for anybody that's out there or listening is that, right now there is a lot of volatility in rates. They're all over the board. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. There's a number of underlying causes for that, which we'll get into in another interview. There's also a lot of investors pulling back on guidelines and making products and programs unavailable. But like I said, once the brakes come off on the economy and we get to get back to business, I think that a lot of that is going to come back very quickly. And the best thing that anybody can do if they think they may or may be in a position for a refi is to get themselves in our system set up so that when the right product is available, the right rate strikes, we can move them in and through quickly. And then also, as far as pre-approvals go, if you're a prospective home buyer, even if you're not out there looking right now, but think you may in the next 6 months, now is a good time to really get yourself prepared. There may be things that need to be addressed as far as income and tax returns and credit goes that we can assist you with. So starting now is the best thing. So we'll put some links to everything in out on social media in the Facebook Live feed, and then we're also going to share this video on our other social media as well. So we'll put the links there. So John, thank you for your time. Stay safe, stay positive, and thanks again.
Thank you as well, Tom. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Bye.